literally 30 seconds ago, we were on the phone talking with both the governor's office and the EPA to try to get our arms around what has actually happened, what is happening with the toxic material coming from the East Palestine, Ohio site. And before I say anything else, my heart goes out to the folks in East Palestine that have gone through what they've gone through for the last many days. And we're concerned here in Wayne County because we got word today, and I mean we got word, not official word, but word from folks that trucks were on their way here with the toxic waste, both the liquid waste that would be deep well injected into a Republic site in Romulus, which is in Wayne County, and that the solid waste was going to go to another Republic site in Buren Township, also in Wayne County. We still are not sure. Some of it has already been delivered. Okay, we know it's at some of it's at these facilities. Not everything has been transported yet, but we know some of it's here. And the fact that it's here and we haven't been informed of the volume, we haven't been informed of how it actually got here. Did it come by truck? Did it come by train? Did those transport vehicles, were they well equipped to be able to deal with this? I mean, what happened in East Palestine was a train derailment, a safety issue. The fact that many of these trucks, as I understand trucks today, have come to Wayne County, and Wayne County government not knowing that they're coming, which way they're coming, how safe the trucks are that are coming, is something that has got us all very, very irritated. Nobody more irritated than me. It sounds, for all intent and purposes, like we've been sandbagged. I don't know how you do that without contacting the local officials so that we can, number one, know how to respond to our communities, and number two, give advice in terms of routes that you may take and those other sorts of things. And so in the phone call just a few minutes ago, I talked with the governor, and we talked with some directors or important folks, I guess, with EPA. But to my satisfaction, as it relates to EPA, and by the way, I should say, the governor's office also got last-minute bits and pieces of information. They weren't hiding anything from us. They were trying to get information just like we were, And so the players here are Norfolk Southern Railway and the environment, the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. I'm not here to say anybody was attempting to do anything nefarious, but I can say that the outward effect of it looks like we're being sandbagged. And I don't say personally, I represent 1.8 million people. They're being sandbagged. To say that this is coming and is going to be handled well by the EPA or those folks belies the fact that it should not be a secret, number one. Number two, the substance that I'm hearing is a substance called vinyl chloride, which is very volatile and is a serious carcinogen. So, I mean, I have health issues that I'm concerned about. I have issues of, environmental injustices in terms of what's going on there. And I think that's something that we should have heard about sooner, not be scurrying around 15 minutes before a press conference to try to have the facts to be able to give to you all and the public in Wayne County. I mean, to me, this is very, very serious business. The landfill or the organization that is taking the deep well injected materials, they inject them into a deep well. I'm not an engineer, but the liquids go in there. It's a facility that has been cited many times in the past. It's been previously shut down. We're told now that it's in good standing now? I don't know if it is or if it isn't. We don't know. And I'm not here prepared to say this is in the best interest of the citizens of Wayne County because I don't know. I think all of us would say, take toxic materials somewhere else. I think the reality is everybody would say that everywhere, so there'd be nowhere for toxic materials to go. But that's not my problem in this instance with my citizens. We weren't told what's going on, and we're getting bits and pieces of sketchy information now, but what I do know is some of this material is already at the landfills. Now, I'm understanding from EPA that some of that transport will be shut down immediately, and they're going to make arrangements for some of that material to go other places. Now, you can ask them why that happened. I'm excited that it's going to happen, but I'm not so sure it would have happened if all of us weren't here all day scrambling around trying to find out what's going on, why, and what the potential health effects of it are. So, as I said, not a thoroughly well-planned press conference, but I do have staff here with me, and I think any additional questions that you have, we'll try our best to answer them. And I think, Debbie, do you want to respond? Debbie Dingell is my dear friend, very strong congressperson who usually is not muzzled. So I was going to ask her if she wanted to speak. Maybe she wants to respond. And I say that because she is the one in Congress that's closest to the EPA and those federal agencies, and they know her by name. She's always been an advocate for environmental concerns for Wayne County. So I'd like to give the microphone, if I could, for a minute to Congresswoman Debbie Dingell.
So first of all, I want to thank the executive for caring and being on this and being concerned, and all of us are here at 7 o'clock on a Friday night. There are several things that I want to make clear. That the governor or any of us were aware that these were coming to Michigan. We learned about it via the grapevine and then saw that Governor DeWine had announced it on his site, and the governor did not call the governor or give anybody a heads up. So right now, all of us and the governor and her team are focused on one thing: ensuring that everybody that we represent are safe and that all Michigan residents are safe. Since this happened, we have been in touch, have multiple conversations with EPA, from the EPA administrator to Deborah Shore. I've probably talked to 7 times in the last couple of hours, who's the Regional 5 director. We were talking to her team, getting the answer to a number of questions before we came in here. Been in touch with the DOT secretary, with the Republic. Norfolk Southern, let me be very clear, is the person that is the entity that made the decision to ship to these sites. EPA on Tuesday, they used the word, stood up at this site and was taking over, so that this is now an EPA site, but apparently the order was not signed until today. So EPA is now taking over the site and has, one, assured us that we will know everything that's happening going forward. They told us that there were 5 trucks that came today from Ohio, that they have 99% water and 1% vinyl chloride. Vinyl chloride. Thank you. And that going forward, all of that is on pause, and another site is likely to be found for the liquid, for the injection well. We all know, because, by the way, EPA doesn't know it, but all of us in Wayne County know that both Romulus and some people in EPA call it the Belleville, but it's a Van Buren Belleville. You know, those two communities are totally intertwined. That they have a contract with Republic. It used to be, I can't even think I'm in. So, but the communities have contracts with these organizations. Our job is to make sure that everybody is safe, and that the material there is being stored safely. And EPA has assured us that they will make sure that that is the case going forward. The governor has had multiple calls in the last few hours too. She too and her team are totally committed, and so is everybody. I mean, we've called all the parties involved. They certainly now have the attention of everybody here. But I want to make one thing really clear. From the governor on down, our job, and we will deliver on our job, is to ensure that those that we represent are safe, and that no one ever again blindside everybody the way they did on the delivery of this material. So thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Questions? I know you have to have some. Yes, sir.
For something like this to happen, I mean, generally there's pretty good communication between local state officials and at least the major transportation agencies. I mean, is your head spinning with this?
Yeah, it was spinning. Half an hour ago. You keep learning new bits and details. I think the reality that I'm understanding is the EPA and Eagle, which is the state organization, license certain facilities. These two facilities, these two Republic facilities, are licensed to take toxic material. Whether they're licensed to take this toxic material, I still don't know. And doing it in a way that doesn't let citizens of Wayne County know that it's coming just looks nefarious to me. We have a right to know. 1.8 million people have a right to know. And if you're transporting into our communities, how are you coming in? What roads are you taking? Have the trucks been inspected so we don't have another truck that goes off the side of the road and have a toxic spill here? I mean, to me, those are very elementary questions. And it's not the kind of thing we should be learning 5 minutes before a press conference. And so I'm jaundiced to it all just because common sense dictates to me that you be straightforward and upfront. Now, is this 80% Norfolk and Southern's fault? I don't know, but it's certainly big time culpable. Is this partially EPA's fault? Yeah, I don't know maliciously or not, but clearly there are some things here, and the bright side of it is the energy of myself and these people here have brought significant light to it this evening. Are we the reason that some of this is going to change, that some of these things now tomorrow are not coming here? I think so. I mean, I think it's been that advocacy that has changed the game plan some, but it doesn't answer some of the fundamental questions.
Executive, has anyone explained?
I'm sorry.
Has anyone explained why these materials were not disposed of in facilities in Ohio?
One of the answers that I've heard is there are not facilities in Ohio that are licensed to deal with these.
There are only 3 facilities in the country that are licensed that have the previous contract to accept this material.
And Simon, U.S. Ecology Center U.S. Ecology specifically has been problematic because it's also, whatever they're called, they keep changing names, all of them do. But one of the things to know is the public, especially in the Hamtramck, East Detroit, that communities have been speaking up about U.S. Ecology or whatever it's called, Republic now. The point is, it's fracking materials coming from other states. Much of this is produced in other states coming in here. I'm glad now this brings attention. What else do they bringing in that we're not aware of? We're only aware of this coming in because of the derailment, because we saw what it did to the East Palestine, Ohio community. And all of a sudden people are awakened, like, where is this going? In injection wells in the largest populated county in our state. But the U.S. Ecology, Republic, they have been incredibly not working with the state officials, lack of transparency. I only know this because literally had to deal with them for the last 2 or 3 years, since 4 years since I've been in office. As a Congress member, not getting the direct information out of how they're even transporting it through trucks, through the neighborhoods, and a number of things. But this is incredibly dangerous, of course, bringing in any toxins. But know this, I hope we're also asking what else have they been bringing in from other states.
And I think what Dr. El Sayed would say, too, is we don't know the long-term impact of these chemicals. Whether you inject them or whether you put them in a landfill, the truth of the matter is 20 years from now, 50 years from now, maybe 2 years from now, we don't know what the effect is going to be. And so to say it's safe doesn't really mean it's safe. It means we're probably not going to pass out tonight. But that's not what I think is the level of safety that I want to see Wayne County residents have. So again, any other questions? I mean, I wish we had more definitive answers, but I think what's important is the fact that we don't inures to our benefit and not theirs. There's the disconnects that are here are not normal, reasonable, rational disconnects. They're the kind of disconnects that make one think that there's something shady here.
Why is it taking this situation to call attention to it? How do we know that they didn't transport? I mean, these are licensed for hazardous materials. How do we know a month ago, 2 months ago, they weren't bringing in even more hazardous materials, as this is literally what these sites are made for?
And they are, and they do. That's what they're there for, and they do that. And when they sought licensing years ago, we were there fighting it. This is not a new fight for any of us here. Every time a permit is up for approval, we have fought it. I personally have fought it, and I know the congresswomen have. But they're licensed for material. I don't know what they're doing every day. There are licensing agencies that are supposed to check that. But this is a little different. I mean, here's a disaster that is now being cleaned up, large quantities. I look at one of the things I just heard on the call was 218,000 gallons of, this vinyl chloride diluted with water. But what do I know? I mean, it's not raw vinyl chloride, but that's an awful lot of material. And I just, I'm troubled by it, and I heard what Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib said. I think more advocacy is important, because they're licensed or were licensed doesn't speak to then why was the license taken away years ago? Why have they been cited for a number of violations? Those violations aren't just technical things. They're violations because the toxic material is getting out of the contained area, which means any of us that live and breathe are at risk. And we don't take that lightly.
The chemicals that are already here, how long have they been here?
I think most of them, as I understand, because we're still pulling bits and pieces of information, that they actually came today.
The soil probably came midweek. So there's two different sites. There is the liquid fuel that's going in the ejection well in Romulus, and then the Belleville Van Buren site, people call it different, is getting the contaminated soil.
And if, in fact, some of it was delivered 2 days ago, it further accentuates the point that I'm talking about is, why are we hearing about it through the grapevine today? We didn't receive any official call from anybody that this is coming in to talk to the government agency. We just happen to have some people out there that saw things and called us. That's not the way you run a railroad.
Could there be more to the congressional delegation? Could there be more federal congressional investigations into this?
Trust me, there have already been multiple letters that have been sent this evening. Conversations have been had with the EPA director, the secretary of DOT, the head of Norfolk Southern. Republic called while we were on the phone call, and we will all, Rashida and I are known as double trouble for a reason.
Of course, the EPA can do more. No one deserves this in their backyard.
The EPA is, Rashida, what they took over today.
I understand, but they need to stop it in their track. We shouldn't get any of it.
Any other questions? I mean, we will be happy after the press conference to hang around. I know I will. Doc, you've got a few minutes on that if you wanted to talk to folks individually, but
why would this have taken so long for the EPA to take it over in the first place? Why would it be handled by Norfolk Southern?
So a lot of us had strong feelings that this site wasn't being handled correctly. Secretary of Buttigieg only went to Ohio this week. So when the EPA administrator went on Tuesday, he said that EPA was taking over the site. I think, honestly, it should have happened beforehand. I haven't exactly been secret about that. But then I asked the question, so why did you only officially take over the site today? Apparently the order wasn't signed until today, because I want to make sure the EPA really has control of the site now. So they all heard me ask that question. I also think it's incredibly stupid to deliver contaminated soil from one derailment site to another site that was the site of a derailment only a week ago, and shows a lack of any kind of political sensitivity. And it was Norfolk Southern that had the derailment in Van Buren last week. So they're taken from one derailment to the site of another derailment.
And, you know, and the irony of bureaucratic talk when someone talks about when a contract was signed instead of when people breathed carcinogens. I mean, those aren't on a parity. Those aren't, one's not an answer to the other. I don't care when a contract wasn't signed. Citizens should not be put in harm's way this way. We just want to make it as clear as we can that we're just getting the information, and we felt it important to try to get it out to citizens of Wayne County to understand that this is happening. The landfills, to some extent, are taking these. And I guess if there's any silver lining, what we heard a little while ago was they're starting to change, they being the EPA, is starting to change their thought process on this and are halting further shipments that have already been scheduled to come here. Now, where it goes afterwards or whether that's rescinded later, I don't know. But right now, I think they're on pause about the concerns that we're talking about here.
A question for Dr. Al-Sayed.
Yes, sir.
For people who may not be familiar for the potential symptoms, I mean, heaven forbid that there is, exposure, could you walk people through what human exposures could happen here medically based on what's known?
Sure, I appreciate the question. So there's the person in which that toxicity is happening, then there's the toxicity. One of the things that is really important to remember is that you're talking about 1.8 million people who have long been exposed to a lot of pollution, and the baseline sensitivity to something like this might be higher in a dense community like ours. What we understand about vinyl chloride specifically is, as the CEO said, it's quite volatile, meaning you take the chemical and you release it, it's going to start interacting with all kinds of other stuff in the air, or if it's in solution, it's going to start interacting. So it's not just vinyl chloride, it's vinyl chloride and all of its distant cousins, right? The first known studies found toxicity related to the liver in ingestion. There's also been elevated glucose intolerance, so symptoms akin to diabetes. And then we know that it causes lung inflammation, and it causes tumors. It's a carcinogen. The reality of it, though, is that most of the studies that have looked at this are based on worker exposure. It's what happens in a facility that's handling this stuff. And that's not the same as slow, long-term exposure. We don't actually know what the long-term slow exposure at some chronic level actually does to a body. And unfortunately, right, what we're going to find out is what's happening in East Palestine. And the thing that I hope everybody kind of understands is that it's like you had this mess in East Palestine because of this corporation, right, that had been pushing on deregulation. And then, right, you're spreading it into all of these different communities. And I know, and I know the CEO has been forceful on this, we don't want to be a part of that experiment, right? Because right now, there's going to be long-term studies that look at the long-term impact of slow chronic exposure that are going to focus on East Palestine. Let's not make it Wayne County too.
I got a text while we were here, no more waste is headed to Michigan from EPA. You got elected representatives that fight hard.
Thank you. I'm going to end the press conference now, but if you want to personally interview any of the folks here, I think we can all hang around for a minute. I can't speak for you, Rashida, but can you?
Yeah.
You okay? Okay.